Yeah, welcome back to this particular channel. And today what I want to do is to explain Agentic Loop using coding parts. In the previous video, what I did was just to explain Agentic Loop using theoretical aspects, whereby we look at some of the Agentic Loop that we have in Claude SDK, and also that relates to every agents SDK that is out there. And today what we are going to do is just to explain the Agentic Loop using code parts, because in the examination you are going to write some code and you are going to explain how the coding parts also work. And what I have used here is a Claude API stimulator. I didn't use the Ray Claude API because I want to preserve my API tokens. So what I did here was just to create the Ray Claude API stimulator, to create a stimulator which is the same thing as the Claude SDK API key. So I've included in the code sample the stimulator and also the Ray API if you want to use the API key for it. So let me walk you through the setup that I have here. Now I have the Agentic Loop simulator and Agentic Loop. The Agentic Loop simulator is where I stimulate the Claude API SDK, and the Agentic Loop uses the API key. For you to run the Agentic Loop, you need the API key, but for Agentic Loop simulator, you do not need API key. What you need is a fake API key, just a random number, and it's going to work. Now let's check the Agentic Loop.py and see what we have there. So this example demonstrates sending message to clock, checking stop raising, executing requested to, returning to results. It continues until we have the end. So I imported OS, then I imported JSON. I also imported Anthropic from Anthropic. So you need to install the Anthropic SDK, which is pip install Anthropic. You need to do that. Then this is where you are going to supply your SDK at this particular point. So you supply your SDK here. Then we have two that we are going to use, which is get weather to lookup. So we define our get weather here, the city, which takes city as a parameter, and then this is just to stimulate a weather API. So in the normal Claude Agentic SDK, if you are developing a normal agent, what you are going to need, you are going to connect to a Ray API. So I stimulate a weather API here, then I take the city name as an argument, then return the weather information. So this is it. I have 3 cities: Lagos, London, and New York. Those are the 3 cities that I have. Then return city, the city name, then weather, the weather data that is for that city, the city name, weather data unavailable if there's no weather data for that particular city. Then to use the tool we are going to use, which is the weather API. So this here is to stimulate a weather API. So this is where we are going to call the weather API. This tools is where we are going to call the weather API. So I have name, get weather, description, get current weather for a city, then inputs the schema, type is an object, property city, and type string. Then require the city, it require the name of the city. Then to router, we have the execute to function here. So what this does is execute a requested to. We have the to name, the name of the to, the input, that's the to argument. So going back to the to name is what? Get weather. That's the to name we are going to get there. So to name, get weather, return weather, to input, which is the city that we are requesting the data for. So the Agentic Loop now is, first of all, we run the agent, runs an Agentic Loop until Claude returns end turn. So now let's walk through the iteration. The messages is row user content user query. So the first iteration is while true is going to run a get message client.messages create this particular message model Claude Sonnet 4 maximum token 1000 to twos, that you are divine in twos. The message, this is the messages. If you go back to messages, you see the messages here. Alright, so it prints response.stop raising. Once we have that, then case 1 is Claude wants a 2. If response.to raising is 2 use, we are going to have the message that append row assistant content response.content, then execute every requested 2. So for this one, we have for content in response.content. If content the type is to use, then we print the content.name, we print the name of the content, and then we have the 2 results, which is content.name, content.inputs. Then we have return 2 results to Claude. It's going to return the results gotten from the 2 and send that back to Claude. That is where we have messages.append, which is to return the results that we got for the 2 to Claude. Then 2 type is 2 results, 2 use ID, content ID. Then content is just going to dump the 2 results. It's going to dump that to Claude. That is iteration 1, and it continues. Then case 2 is Claude finished reasoning. So we have an elif here, which is if response.top raising is end turn. That means our the agentic loop is completed. If not, it go back and run another iteration again. Then we have print response.stop raising. We can now print the stop raising. So I can't run this because I didn't supply the Claude API key here. So I'm going to go to the Agentic Loop simulator here to run this. So this is the simulator. What I did there was just to create a simulator to stimulate the Claude API SDK. So I have here test block class, and I have another class which is to use block. I have another class which is the Claude response, stimulate like a response that I'm going to get from Claude. Then I have the class message API that is just to stimulate this particular method that we have a client.messages.create. I stimulate that. Then I have the 2 results received, and then the Anthropic simulator, which is where the Ray magic is. Drop in placement for Claude as Anthropic SDOS.environment. This particular that we have in Agentic Loop.py. So this is just to stimulate this, and then what you need here is to supply a random API key, and you might not supply any random API key. Whatever you give to it, it goes. Then get weather stimulates, get the weather database Lagos, London, New York. Then return the city with the weather information, and if it is unknown, you get the city is unknown. So the 2 is get weather, and then execute the 2. Then we have the loop here, the agentic loop, which is the same as what I have just explained. So we have complete agentic loop flow, user Claude, to use execute, append 2 results, go back to Claude, check, end turn, and then finished. So we have our Claude. This is where you supply your random API key, or you can just leave it like this. If it is like this, it's going to run also. So iteration 1, to use, then we have the end turn, which is response.stop is stop reasoning. So if you run this, we are going to have, so to run it, we say Python 3 Agentic Loop simulator.py and run this particular guy. Once we run it, you see we have Agentic Loop simulator. Then iteration 1, we have stop raising to use. Claude has requested a 2. Then 2 name, get weather, 2 inputs, city, Lagos. Then we have, if you scroll down, the 2 outputs. This is what is gotten from the 2. Then send this back to Claude again. So then we have stop raising is equal to end done. Claude has completed its reasoning. Final response from Claude. Based on the 2 results, the weather information is Lagos. That is what we have from Claude. So if we change the city, let's go back and change the city name to something else. We want to change this city name to New York. Then for run agents, we say New York. Save this and run this guy again. Let's then run it again. So we have the weather for New York, temperature 22. Then the two outputs, city New York, temperature 22. This is what happens when you run the Agentic Loop, whether you use the Agentic Loop simulator or the Agentic Loop.py. You get the same result. That's the end for the Claude Agentic Loop code sample. In the next video, we are going to be looking at the multi-agent system. If you have not subscribed to this channel, click on that subscribe button and click on the notification button to be notified of new video that I am going to release from this particular channel. Bye.